Oh, you're waiting for me.
All right, we'll go ahead and get this work session called to order this evening, and we'll get into our 2027 budget discussion. Dr. Martin.
Thank you very much. Let's start at the beginning because it's a very good place to start. And last time we started with the Code of Virginia. So this is just kind of a friendly reminder to all of us that the code requires that it's my duty to prepare with the approval of the school board to submit an estimate of funds based upon needs. So I want to talk about this just a little bit as we move forward. There are lots of ways to put a budget together, lots of ways. I've seen some of my colleagues kind of go contrary to the Code of Virginia because they will ask the Board of Supervisors for a figure and then they work to the figure. That is contrary to what the code says. So what we're doing tonight is we are and have been looking at all of our needs. We're putting those together so there are discussion points for us to have with that. And I can tell you, just based on my short time here, we have presented some needs to the Board of Supervisors. And those needs were tennis courts, carpet to tile, and roof repairs. And based upon justifying those needs, they have funded those needs. So I think the same is kind of true of our budget. We're going to present the needs and they will move forward. So as we go through this, and this is kind of not to put a damper on anything, I've watched your past budget discussions. They've been interesting, to say the least, in past years. But one thing that I would hope as we move forward, that you as board members and staff, we're going to all ask questions. So at the very end of this process, we can all stand behind what we've agreed upon. So I'll just give you maybe another little story. All of you know that I was on the Board of Supervisors in Henry County for 4 years. So if the school board there had presented a budget that the board had not unanimously approved, it would not have gotten anywhere on the Board of Supervisors because that told us as board members, and this actually never happened, that you all weren't unanimous. So how can you expect the funding body to get behind something that the board wasn't unanimous on? So as we go through this, I encourage you to ask us questions. And if you're not seeing something or information that you need to make an informed decision about this budget, you need to push us until we give you the answers that you want. Because we want everybody to feel comfortable in this budget. Because guess what? At the end of the day, I'll be your cheerleader, but there have to be 5 on that side of the table that will be cheerleaders as well for the budget because we've gone through the needs. And then I trust the Board of Supervisors to do the best they're going to do because they've got a pie to cut up with all the departments. And they're going to cut it up, but we need to make a case for why we need the dollars that we need. So I just want to kind of put that out there. I am meeting with the county administrator later this week, and I want to be sure that the Board of Supervisors understands that we are anticipating a work session. I'd like to have it in this room around a table rather than somebody sitting up, the board sitting someplace and we're sitting below, because truly we're all together on this. We need to be looking at each other in the eye and saying, yes, but, or that's a great idea. Let's think about that. Let's explore that. And I say no other way to do that but right here in this room. So I want to get those dates confirmed as we move forward. So this is the last work session before our work session with the Board of Supervisors, unless we schedule another one. So I know tonight your new superintendent is watching. And I have sent him all of these informations electronically so he can follow along. Let me stop there, but first say to my staff, everybody that's here, you have no idea how much time they've put into this and how much active discussions we have had. And they have been active because guess what? The superintendent or acting superintendent doesn't have all the answers. But there are people here that truly, truly have the answers. And that's what you're going to hear tonight. We encourage you to ask questions and don't be like last time. Y'all just sat there. It was like having a classroom of graduate students. They just sit there because they've had dinner and they're sleepy. So just be interactive with us. Ask us questions because we want you to do that. All right. So we're going to move on. So at our previous work session, we talked about personnel, our budget requests, our class size, and the teacher salary and benefit. So having said that, do you have any questions after thinking about this before I hand the baton to Rachel? Because she's going to take you through some things that you didn't see the last time. I guess not.
So last time when we talked about the salary market study, we wanted Shenandoah County Public Schools added on there. So this is just maybe a very quick, easy overview to talk about the different percentages, totaling 6 neighboring divisions that are true neighboring divisions, not just Region 4. So with that, we do rank 4th amongst the division. So we are only paying more than Page County and Shenandoah County. And these are just the percentages to dollar amount, again, taking year 1 through 30 or 0 through 30 through the scale and the average. It's not saying each one could be a little different with the steps, but this is the overall. So we are averaging about 3.5% below to be the most competitive or to be on par with the other counties, which is why we'll talk about it a little bit later, but our strategic plan over the next 3 years to how to adjust specific salary scales, what year those will come in, what the percentages for increase will be. So that way it's not trying to do it all at once. We can't do that. It's not realistic, but how do we become more competitive by adding in those percentages? So we will talk about that later, but I just wanted to add that one on there since it was asked of last time.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah,
For when you did obviously those are the real numbers of the differences between it, but obviously there's cost of living changes in different places. Frederick County taxes are more, things cost more. Is there some formula you can throw into there and say, well, our dollar is worth $1.50 someplace else, but it's the same dollar in that sense?
That's a good point.
I can. What we did last time was we looked at maybe the student-teacher population ratio, and then I'm looking at the total compensation benefits for the employer side from what are they putting into their benefits, what are we putting into ours, just from a more comparative for a school system, but not the actual market that they're in.
And it may be good to look at the medium real estate market as well, because it's indicative of how those areas might be.
And the median income in the area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And obviously, some of the folks that work in this county could
Live
easily
other
drive. I mean, they don't have to move or whatever, but it is still a drive compared to not driving. So I think this is great to have the difference of it in real numbers, but I think there's a little bit more of nuance that has to be put into it.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. That's great.
Sorry, one more. So in your handout, that screen is on there. And then I just updated the comparison with all of the schools with the
That's-
side-by-side
This one.
in the document protector, and then also just showing Shenandoah County. Just as a visual. And then I will hand it over to Kendall.
All right.
This one's in the front.
In your packets, you will find a red line proposed salary scale for next school year. Identifying all proposed changes will be in the red and or mark through. We've received positive feedback from this year's new template to support our transparency and our scales and how they're presented and adjusted. So we'll just continue with that format for next year as well. You'll also see in there the coordinator supplements have now been factored into our base scales due to the VRS insurance benefits eligibility upon retirement. So at the very bottom, we would have a coordinator supplement of maybe $7,500. And now what we're doing is we're putting that into their base salary template. That way it is all contributed towards their VRS retirement. It just supports the employee along the way. The staff members who are currently at the maximum years of their scale will receive a 4% increase as well. And everybody else will receive a 4% plus step unless if they are on a scale adjustment. And I would like to go through the scale adjustments at this time. The first scale adjustment would be the instructional assistants. Currently, we have all instructional assistants on the scale. It's just an instructional assistant as a general ed and a special ed. Right now, we would like to propose a level 1 and a level 2. The level 1 adjustments are made to align with our new minimum wage requirements of $15. And this is aligned with compressing our scale from 0 to 30 years of experience to a compressed scale of 0 to 17 years of experience to ensure the compliance of the minimum wage adjustments.
And it's on page 8.
Of the very large document, it's on page 8.
Who would be on level 1 and who's on level 2?
So level 1 would be your general ed. Level 2 is going to be a compiled list of staff members who are either in our PACE program, pre-K program, or our learning centers as well. This would be an approximate of 50 instructional assistants that this would impact. And the reason why is they're required to do additional training, responsibilities, and qualifications.
So it's 50 that would be level 2.
Correct. They also, on level 2, must complete an advanced certification program to perform their day-to-day duties safely and effectively, given the enhanced needs of the students that they're working with.
I'm sorry, did you say this used to be, how many years did it used to be?
0 through 30.
Okay, and we've shrunk it to 17.
We have, and the reason why is for the minimum wage. It took us that
So
many
that we can bring 'em
steps
up
until we
without the
reached our
total
minimum
cost
wage.
going up too much.
Correct. The difference between level 1 and level 2 is a hourly rate of $2 additional. If this is approved, we will notify our staff members of the new scale requirements and expectations moving forward to our next school year as well, and supporting them along the way with reimbursement, study materials, and a plan of action.
Do you know how many of those approximately 50 IAs already have the certification versus how many would need to get
I
more
will
certification?
gather that data for you.
On the general ed assistants, that would be like library, library PE, kindergarten,
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
and then
Yes. Your Title I as well.
Title
Yes,
I.
ma'am.
And that is a goal. We haven't formally announced it or had a plan for that, but is to get all of our instructional assistants to be highly qualified through the Parapro or Praxis, just because if we ever do have to go through our RIF list or have to move or transfer people, that would limit them in being into the Title I school. So it would be really nice to get everybody at that point, because we do reimburse them for passing that Praxis already or Parapro. It's a goal. It's not on here.
And we do pay for their training.
And then we are going to advance to page number 22. This is our nurse scale. In this scale, we have compressed the original scale for this current school year is 0 through 30 years of experience. It will be compressed through 0 through 16. The addition of a licensed practical nurse has been added to this scale. The adjustments were to address the increased competition with our surrounding counties. They also have LPNs with our surrounding counties, and higher turnover due to the demand of nurses with our backyard competitor, Valley Health. In here, the big difference is yes, it's a compressed scale. We've asked for licensed practical nurses as well. But the registered nurses, how we adjusted this is we took our registered nurses scale that we currently have and moved them halfway through. So then that way they'll receive that compensation. But then also the licensed practical nurses will receive the top part of our scale. Their nurse coordinator receives $7,500, and this is where that part of the extra compensation of the $7,500 is just added into that base. And then we will just remove that little part at the bottom where it's marked through. Any additional nurses that we currently have on staff that have more than 16 years of experience will receive a 4% raise off of their current salary. And then lastly, I would like to address our bus drivers, which is on page 15. The difference between their current scale and the new presented scale is our bus drivers are currently working 4.5 hours. However, they will be moved to a 5-hour rate, reflecting the additional 0.5 hour increase of their daily compensation. And this is due to our staggered start times and our extended routes. Our current bus drivers are managing their own time. With the data that we're collecting is they're having to be compensated through a timesheet. So they'll finish out their route and then extra time will then be adjusted through a timesheet at this time. So we want to address the challenge right now and just build it into their salary scale and compensate them correctly. Our 8-hour schedule will only receive a 4% plus the step. So they're in line with everybody else on our salary scales.
Can you talk about how the salary numbers have changed from the 4.5 to 5? Because I don't have the 4.5 in front of me. Like, what did it used to be? How did we calculate what this will be?
I can explain how we calculated it out. Was we took their salary rate, divided it over their contract, which is 180 days, then divided that out by 4.5 hours to get their hourly rate, then divided that again to get their 0.5 to make sure we're compensating them correctly. Added a 0.5 of their hourly rate and with their current hourly rate, and then times it all back in. So then we times in the 5 hours, then times in the 180 days to get the new base.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions on those?
So for the admin scale, still reworking how to help our deans move over into the admin scale better. It's a work in progress. I'm not ready to present that tonight. I don't want to adjust 3 different scales, so we're looking at how can we just take our deans, put them on their own scale using years of experience, so that way we're not impacting our assistant principals at elementary or secondary and principals. So that will be coming, but we're still facing that struggle to make sure that they're not going to lose money going into an admin role. So that will be here to come. So it's just not prepared for you tonight. All right, and then our salary scale strategic plan is also in your binder. It should be.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Are we done
please.
with this? Okay, so my only question, I was kind of skimming through some of the back of the supplemental, and I know it's been a conversation since I've been on the board, the DECA teachers, because I've seen the time that they put in, and that has been a point of conversation. Is that going to come up to as anything. I know we've talked about it, that, you know, they're teachers, but they also spend a lot of evening hours because they have DECA requirements. How are they gonna be compensated just as other people on the supplemental? Or is that in process maybe?
So we would like to. It's not that we're not talking about it or looking at it, but they are still, I'll put them in the club category. They are not, and I'll compare it to, you know, our FFA. FFA is recognized, and I might not use the most proper term, so I'll lean on others for support on how to say this, but FFA would be like sponsored or accredited through the school, where DECA is not. So if we compensate DECA as a club, there are several other clubs that we have within the school system that we would then need to compensate. So right now, we're just focusing on how it is accredited the right word? I don't feel like I'm using the right word when I say this. Because I don't want to say accredit. That's not certified. I mean, it's recognized within the school system. So I'll
I mean,
say
it's recognized nationally. We have kids that go to state and national competitions with DECA.
we do, but it's not recognized. Like, they're not getting that within the school. Like, it's not sponsored by this VDOE. It's not something that they're recognizing. It's recognized as a club. I'll find better language on how to say this, and I apologize for that. But if it's viewed as a club and it's not part of like a curriculum that we have approved through the VDOE, if we approve them as a club, how many other clubs would we then say we're approving? So I think it's challenging to say, well, we're going to recognize DECA and we're going to give them an 11-month contract or a supplement here, but we're not going to do this, robotics club or this club over here, anything, because we're, how do we say what we value or don't value more? And DECA's doing a great job. I have had many conversations with them about this. It's not that we wouldn't want to present that, but how do we keep it fair and equal with all of the clubs is probably the biggest struggle that I've had with this.
And it could also be contract length, because you mentioned 11 months. Mm-hmm. Because some of our, like FFA and others, it's part of their contract that they're working through like the summer, and they've divided hours and how they do that, plus a stipend. So we probably need to bring that back to you so you can say how it's calculated, which ones are 11-month contracts, which ones are club stipend, mm-hmm. That piece of that. So let us bring that back to you. But that's a good question. Thank you. The other thing that I'll just tell you that I'm looking at, and if there are any secondary principals watching, I'll get phone calls tomorrow. I'm looking at the master schedules of how many kids are in each block in each period to be sure that, not that we've maxed it out, but I may be asking questions of why there may be 4 kids in a block. But I want to put that in perspective, because when you take a teacher's salary and they teach 8 blocks a year, I'll take that and divide by 8. And if they're only teaching 2 or 4 kids, that's a pretty expensive class that we might want to look at. Is the same class being taught second semester? So now we combine those kids back in that. And DECA is one that I've looked at, I'll just tell you. Not that it's anything wrong, but they have so many specialty classes, and we just need to look at the enrollment.
During last year's budget, we talked a lot about salary scales changing. Did we not get them approved? Or is it we're going back to the board, or we needed more salary scales?
So this is going from what we did last year and asking for the same thing, because of being level funded and the money going towards the 3% and the benefits and other needs, we weren't able to make any of these changes, and so we're coming back.
I feel like I was in a little bit of deja vu. And
It is.
So it's really happening
still
again.
A need.
Okay.
We're bringing it back to the table.
Great.
And yes, DECA, I don't disagree. I will find the better wording for how it's associated to the school, because it's not, and why. But it's not that we don't want to. It's just trying to be fair and consistent for all of our clubs. But I will get back with you. All right. So our strategic plan, that is in your binder, in one of the folders. So when we look at our salary scales, we do get a lot of our employees that will come to us and talk through, I haven't had an adjustment, or this is, maybe where we're at. And we do talk about our teachers the most. That is the biggest group. It's the easiest group to talk about. But I do want to have a plan in place as we move forward. So if it doesn't, happen this year, we're bringing it back to the table next year. But this way you can also see what scales we would like to adjust this year, what scales we would like to adjust next year, and year 3. And this will touch almost all of them. So for this will help us, be more consistent with our scales, to be able to make sure the COLAs are correct, to make sure that we're also being competitive. We're retaining our employees' pay. I mean, not a lot of people want to work for free, so would like to do that and just be sustainable. So our first year, as Kendall's already talked about, the 4% raise plus the step for the overall covered position. So this would be for all. And then in the ranking order, what Kendall also went through is our instructional assistants, nurses, bus drivers, and dean to the administrator scale. The additional things we would like to have on here is our head coaches. So last year we had also presented changing our coaching supplements and how they are compensated. They have not been touched for over 10 years. So really a lot of our coaches are just volunteering at this point by the time they do get compensated and get taxed. But so we would like to start in a 2-phase. We would like to start with our head coaches, just VHSL supplements, to have our head coaches adjusted. And then next year in year 2, go to our assistant coaches. This will obviously come with a cost. This is a very big ask and change. However, in surrounding counties, we are paying the least, like by far the least for our coaches. So we'd like to have a tiered process with that. We would like to also add to grade 42 the intern school psychologist program. There are 1,100 hours of clinical hours that they have to complete. That is a lot of time, and I wouldn't want them to do that for free as an intern, more or less, if that's what you'd like to call it. So we would like to offer them $30,000 for the year. This would be locally funded. They would complete their hours with us and hopefully build our pipeline to be able to have those positions, because we're down one right now, and this is very challenging. This is a small niche to find.
We're also, you might remember, using a school psychologist online, and that has not been what we thought it would be at this point. So we found out about the intern program. That means they'll be here, they'll be supervised by one of ours, and they'll still be a full site person by going through their training. So we think that is pretty advantageous.
Because without the 1,100 hours, they can't complete the program. So we would just be supporting them through that. And then we would like to add 3 positions to a 50-50 match. So 50% local match and 50% title match. Right now, their full salary is out of title funding. So we would like to bring them halfway in to us from a local funding, and then halfway for the title funding. And it could be in Title 1, 2, or 4, I believe is the correct, yep, for that.
So let me say a word about, I don't want to jump ship too much. Okay. Last week, we got notice from Virginia Department of Education that our title funds, Title I specifically, like every other school system in the state, our funds have been cut for this year, which now means that's why you're seeing this recommendation, because most of the title funds, and I say most, are in salaried positions. So we need to think ahead and try to pull most of those positions out of title and put them in a local salary line. So we are currently working on how that will actually, for this year, how we're going to meet the deficit in funding. We're not ready to talk about that yet, But just know that there are some salaried positions that we have to look at, and the Title I funding totally together. Did I say that all right, Ms. Bragg?
Yes, I think that's pretty accurate. And I will just say that those Title I instructional staff are extremely important in light of us not continuing the student support coaches and the student support coach IAs. Those are the staff that are working directly with our students identified on the reading plans to, host reading remediation groups. Our teachers are also hosting reading remediation groups, but without that additional staff, we will not be able to meet the minutes of what the reading plans dictate with the number of students that are required to be served under the BLA.
Why did they do this?
I'm sorry?
Why did they do this? What happened? Why did they cut everybody's title
Everybody's.
funding?
So I think it depends. For us, we have less students. That was one of the factors.
Okay.
And I think one of our staff members talked to the state today because we're still trying to figure that out. One of the things I know was we have less students than we did last year in terms of ADM. So that is something that we need to look at. I would think by our work session in November, we will have a pretty solid proposal for you to consider how we're going to accomplish the deficit and still hold on to our staff members.
Is it income based? This one is not income based. Okay.
So knowing this, we would like to start moving them over. And that was all year one, what we would like to do. And some of that is carryover and adding the 1% this year and 1% next year for the 4% increases is to help us stay competitive. So when you look at that market analysis just from the salary perspective, if they're adding 3% and or more, we want to continue to build on that, but not do it all at once. So year two, we're still recommending 4% raise plus step for all positions. And we would like to look at our secretaries scales, our social workers, and our speech pathologist scales. So we would like to start revamping those. And then the assistant coaches for VHSL implement that in, again, just as a tier to stay consistent with the head coaches. Year three would be a operational and technical staff, so it would be a 3% raise plus step. This gets us to our 11%, so the goal was 10% over 3 years. We would get there, but it would be a 3% plus step for all, and then we would look at maintenance, our specialist scale, and automotive mechanic scales. So we would like to revamp those. So that is our.
So kind of remember, if we buy into this concept, teachers always want to raise, so do staff. They always want to be competitive. We know financially that's not possible all in 1 year. That's why we're suggesting a 3-year approach as we go through this. And we could sell this to the Board of Supervisors. Teachers are expecting this year, and knowing that revenues are going to be what revenues and the economy is going to be what the economy is going to be, so that fluctuates, then our next plan the next year would be the same until the 3rd year. Our current staff would have realized a 10% raise over a period of time. It catches us up. It makes us more competitive. I'm kind of curious, how do you all feel about a stepped approach, multi-year approach for this?
I like it. I like having a plan in place and knowing what to expect and then not having it be a guessing game of, I'm a planner. I like seeing that.
Yeah, it's easier to look at in the future instead of saying we need all this money right now. It's going to be a harder sell for that. So to be able to say we've thought about it, we know what we're doing and we have a plan for it, and we don't want to overburden the county, but we have our needs for our people. So I like the idea of it myself.
And this could also be subject because we don't know what the current the new governor is going to do. Typically, a new governor and their plan when they come in, they typically like education. So there could be a plan on the state's part to help us this first year. And certainly we will know what the state funding is in the new biennium because that's a 2-year program. So we'll get to see what the funding plan is and how this might fit into that. I don't think we're gonna have to fight all of this off, 4% and the step 5%. I think the state will come through with something, and then we're just hoping that the locality will pick up the rest.
I have just a technical question. We frequently refer to budget years based on the year, like 26, 27. On the agenda, it says we're talking about fiscal year 2027 budget discussions, but on this one, year one, it's fiscal year 2026. What is it? What is the academic year or the fiscal year 2026, 27? What's that budget year called? Is it 27?
27.
So we need to add.
Okay.
These are
add
all
one.
just off by a year, but did you just mean like we're talking about it during this budget season? I don't know what you meant, like, because I see what he's asking.
Yeah.
Because you just have like, we're adjusting that this
Oh.
year, but really we're adjusting it for the FY 27.
Correct.
But we're talking about it
Correct.
this year in
Correct,
26.
for next year.
So everything
Yeah.
should be like 27, 28,
Should be
29.
correct.
Yeah.
Add one.
27, 28,
Okay.
Yes. Checking your math skills here now.
All right, thank you.
Right. So we know that over the last several years that different opportunities and discussions at the board that we've talked about textbook money and trying to get on pace to adopt textbooks as the ones that we currently have are running out of their contract, and also as the state is putting forth new materials and also new legislation. So one of the things as we go into the discussion about textbooks that I wanted to mention is in the General Assembly last year, they passed, and it was signed into law, some additional information about requirements for textbooks coming from the state. And specifically, they have adjusted that language to address that, the schools shall adopt and implement textbooks, and then what they also call high quality instructional materials in English, grades 6 through 12, and then in the other core subjects, math, science, and history for grades K through 12. You may ask why English K-5 isn't in that list, and that is because of the Virginia Literacy Act, which we've talked about many times. The Virginia Literacy Act already requires us to have a high-quality instructional material approved by the board in place for English K-5. And so what this piece of legislation did was it sort of extended that, what that was started under the Virginia Literacy Act, up into 6 through 12 for English, and then also picked up the other 3 core requirements, math, science, and social studies, in K-12. So we should be hopefully receiving some new lists from the state where they have selected those materials that they feel meet high quality instructional levels, and we can look and review those and purchase off of that list. There is the possibility of running through some of our own local adoption processes, but those materials that are set forth by the state are going to be the ones that the majority of divisions are taking a look at, and what the state is saying, this is meeting high quality instruction in our classroom. So I just wanted to mention that is a new legislation, new law that will go into effect effective July 2026. So a little bit of implementation time. Also, there's nothing in the bill that I can see where it says what this rollout will be. So it's not like we have to purchase everything new at one time. It's much like the salary scales. It's going to have to be a staged approach. But, we do kind of have that sort of playing in the background of this discussion as well. And that's why I bring that up. Just quickly before we move into the proposal, as you may remember, our recent textbook history purchases were funded a lot under the CARES Act and ESSER money. That was how we were able to fill the gap in our textbook like in our classrooms, where we had not been able to keep track with local renewal of the textbooks. The CARES money back in 2020 and 2021 specifically allowed us to purchase a lot of sort of like 5-year contracts for some of our textbooks. So that was how we filled that gap in the past. But it's time to start looking at that iteration again. We're looking primarily at math and social studies to come up, and there is a handout here. And to what you were saying, Mr. McFadden, I recognize I can update this and get you a new copy. I think that the FY26 should say 27, but it would be the summer of 2026. So that is also, accountability is the same way. That's right. We were consistent in our inconsistencies. And so it should be FY 27, 28, and 29, but it's off of the summer purchase date. As I've mentioned to the board in the past, social studies last purchased a textbook in the county in 2012. We did go through the adoption process in 2018, but we have not purchased a social studies book at any level. Other than AP European history, we did some online digital purchases. It was last purchased in 2012. So with that said, if you want to take a look at the handout in your binder, labeled textbook funds, and this is the 3-year projected textbook purchase schedule. It addresses the core content, specifically SOL tested courses at the primarily middle and high school level, and our dual enrollment agreement with Laurel Ridge that states that if we have a dual enrolled course, we have to provide a college level textbook that meets the syllabus as required by Laurel Ridge. Some core courses are not included in this projection. For example, several of our history classes are not included, and then some of our upper level science courses are not included. And really the reason why they're left off is to at least try to make what we're requesting here somewhat more manageable. We could look at past those initial 3 years to come, to go back and pick up some additional courses, but that's why they're not on the list. Our specials and elective courses, K-12, are also not included.
Where is that information again?
It is in a sleeve.
You said in our.
Is it this? Well,
Doesn't say.
these are the handouts we get to
right
put
here.
in your
Okay,
binder,
okay.
so they're in front of you.
Okay, I got, is this what you're looking for?
Yeah, we'll go this one and then this one.
All right, I had it right here.
If you don't have it, you can have mine. I have a copy.
I got it.
You got it?
I said binders, I started looking through the
All
I'm
binders.
trying to confuse you. Have you figured that out yet?
There you go.
I'm ready.
So, for the budget year we're talking about, FY27, but the purchase timeline would be in the summer of 26. We are asking for math K through 8 and any high school dual enrollment course that needs textbook to meet, again, that agreement with Laurel Ridge on our high school math courses. The estimate is between $600,000 and $900,000 to cover that cost. And that estimate comes from us reaching out to the publishers of what the VDOE has made available thus far, and just getting a range of what that cost is probably going to look like. The second subject on there is history. Again, requesting only at those levels that are currently SOL tested or verified credit associated: Virginia Studies, Civics, and World Geography. And also, again, the DE courses as needed. And that estimate is listed there for a total of somewhere between $685,000 and just over $1 million to cover that textbook purchase of K-8 math and those 3 history courses. Now, there's a number of things that go into coming up with a history purchase. There's different packages. These are for your kind of, I'll call them typical 7-year agreements. So, it's a heavy price to pay up front, but it's a 7-year agreement for most of these. The other thing that plays into this is how we continue to support technology. So, if Chromebooks remain, as a one-to-one school system, then that does impact how we purchase textbooks. That's less hardback copies, and we can purchase digital licenses. I will tell you the digital licenses aren't substantially cheaper than the hardback books, but there is some cost adjustment there. But the commitment to continue to purchase technology and have that one-to-one option for our students does play into how we would package the textbooks. So there's lots of different options, lots of different room, but this is just based on the typical 7-year contract. The state's required to update the standards every 7 years, so that's where that kind of comes from. And then moving forward in coming fiscal years, you can see the subjects are broken out there, and what I've done is I included how much it costs to purchase that particular group of books in the time frame that we did it, which was primarily in 2020 and 2021. So, we don't have cost estimates of what those would be going forward, but it gives you an idea of where we were at about 5 years ago. You adjust for inflation and things like that. It's going to be more expensive than this, but it gives us a place to start. Even with the adoption in the summer, it's the summertime that we have to get in place to put those new materials and have them ready to go in August when we come back to school. But, as we move forward, trying to combine like a math purchase and an English purchase in the same year is so very expensive. And for example, our math books, they do run out of contract in December. So we'll be able to get through with our hardback books and our student workbooks as best we've been able to sort of pull together to get us through the remainder of this school year. But after this school year, for example, K-5 is a consumable workbook. So there is no student books, there are no hardback books, there is no online support. Questions that you have regarding textbooks?
Do the teachers, if the textbooks are not updated that frequently, do they find other mechanisms, means to teach the students and maybe not rely on the textbooks themselves?
They do. We work to try as best we can to support, high quality instructional materials, even in places like in social studies where we haven't been able to adopt. It does make it substantially more difficult because there's no core material there to point anyone to, as this has been read and approved. The community has had input into it. So when you start getting outside of your your textbook contracts, that does lead towards more individual decision making that's happening regarding lessons and things like that in the classroom.
I would just hope if we did invest all the money in textbooks, that the teachers would then use the textbooks and not hold up desks or something with them.
Absolutely, and that has been our continued effort, to get high quality instruction in front of our students. And I've spoken a lot about it with you all in the past. I think that it is where we have to go. Printing lessons off of Google just isn't getting it done.
I agree.
So I'm gonna make sure I understand this correctly. So as of this December, our math textbooks, which are online, are going to be, we're not gonna have license. So how are we supposed to?
They're not entirely online. So,
Okay.
so let's just take elementary, for example, K-5.
Okay.
There was a consumable workbook for the students, so a floppy, floppy book.
Yeah.
So we have sort of pulled together where we could, enough of those in those classrooms that relied heavily on them. And this is a good example of where, and there's a lot of different reasons that play into why, teachers may not rely as heavily on a textbook. With math undergoing new standards, those books didn't align quite as well as maybe once they did when they were first adopted. But the online support that accompanies that textbook, the contract ends, actually it's in November. So, so the online access will not be available after November, we can always try and gap fill, but then you're spending money for just a few months. I mean, everything just kind of digs the hole a little bit deeper. So we would not have any sort of consumable workbook or online access for K-5 after the school year. For middle school math, it's the same. There would not be a student textbook. Those were also consumables, if I recall correctly, purchased. And let's see here,
Do we have that?
purchased in 2020, and it expires in December.
Of 25.
Yes.
Do we have that colored sheet that you have right there?
I
Or no?
believe I shared this with Dr. Martin, like when you first came on, maybe to give with the board, but I can certainly get it to you
I
again.
can
Okay.
put it in your Friday memo. That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We will attach it.
so what about like the high school math, like the algebra, geometry, algebra 2? So
So
those
they were
also-
bought a little bit on a different time frame. They were purchased a year later, so we have an additional year on those. So if you look at this sheet, you'll see that we pick them up the following year in what would be FY '28 and the summer of '27. We pick up that most of that secondary math, algebra 1, geometry, and algebra 2, because we do have 1 year left on that contract to get us through next school year.
I'm sorry, I'm coming back to
You're
the
good.
elementary math
Yep.
again. So I feel like on any given day during class, each of the students are they're on their Chromebooks on their own level of a math program. That is what is ending, or that's
no.
different?
That is different. So
Okay.
iReady, which is the computer-based program that meets students kind of where they are with their math ability and is working to help fill gaps and identify areas that need additional instruction. That is a different program, and that cost is in my non-labor budget request for instruction. But this is your whole group explicit on grade level instruction for all students. It's not that supplementary, like filling the gaps, working at your own level kind of place. This is, the, like I say, whole group instruction aligned to the standards on the grade level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was part of.
No,
That
iReady
math
we have
program.
through this year. It's a 1-year contract at a time.
So if the core class that's prepping them for the SOL is expiring at the end of November,
The online expires at the end of November and December for elementary and middle school respectively.
okay.
But we
is that-
still have the hardback, the
Right,
teacher edition.
But so is the loss of that online going to create a problem for SOL prep?
We have reached out to teachers. We had a few respond, one school in particular that said that they would like to see us pick up the elementary online, that they are using it as part of it. I will tell you that elementary online platform, it's old by standards. It had Adobe Flash on it, so many of their games and interactive tools stopped working. I don't know, 5 years ago when Adobe Flash went to the wayside. So there's not a ton, I think, of over-reliance on the online resources. When we ask teachers, who is using this, we have the ability through our system to kind of see how many logins are happening and things like that to see what the use is. At this time, and given the amount of money that it costs, I feel like that it wouldn't be a huge loss in math if we did not have that online resource for the second half of the year. My bigger concern is not having a primary textbook at all next school year in math.
Rob, are you gonna cover the funding, which is that next page? textbook funding?
I was asked to put together a, just a listing and going back to last year's budget, this is deja vu all over again. We tried to get, the state funds a category called textbook funding in the standards of quality. And that can be used for textbooks or to purchase instructional materials. Out of necessity, for forever probably, we have used that money to purchase instructional materials and not put it aside in a textbook fund. Last year, you'll recall when we were building this year's budget, we tried to set aside that $419,500 that's shown here for this current fiscal year. We tried to set that aside, take that out of the operating budget and put it over in the textbook fund. Because the $750,000 additional we got from the county got eaten up by health benefits, we weren't able to do that. So it flopped right back into this year's operating budget. And here's a history of it, just going back over the last, including this year, the last 6 years. And you can see if we would have been able to put that away in the textbook fund, these numbers that Heather has shown us on this sheet, we could have pretty much met those requirements. That didn't happen this year, but going forward, this would be one way of creating that sustainable fund so that we can re-adopt and actually purchase our textbooks on a regular basis and have the funds to do it. So just that's what this information is shared for. If we're able to do that, that sort of takes that problem sort of off the table, just like if we can set aside money each year for school buses and other capital needs such as roofs and the other things that we're going to talk about later this evening. But it takes discipline and it takes it takes a good economy to be able to provide that.
So you'll probably see in the governor's budget a line that says textbook fund. That's what we're talking about, and just keeping that kind of sacred by itself will help us purchase the textbooks.
All right. I would like to paint the picture of last week when we showed you how did we compile all of these requests. And each cost center had the breakdown of their personnel requests, other requests, facilities, and then their non-labor requests. And we also had them go through a zero-based budget and then put in their proposed dollar amounts as well. So this is just a compile of all of the requests right now. And in that, we have identified in your packet, there's 2 handouts that will support the conversation. And just to review, these are all of our requests that we have put together in just a summary page of our non-labor accounts. However, we are still reviewing these as a whole, and we are still identifying what are those needs, and then that way we'll be able to bring our budget together. So overall, last year we are level funded, and our next year's proposal budget is driven primarily by inflation, modernization of learning and operations, and ongoing investments in students. There's an average for our elementary of an increase over $400, middle school over $15,000, and high school over $46,000. When we were meeting with secondary, the common denominator, I think, between the 2 secondary high schools was band uniforms, band equipment, the instruments as well. They have not been able to repair or replace them in years since they've been opened. So just kind of keep that of like, this is a lot, Kendall. I know. And they'll have explanations. So on the cost centers, every line, we ask them to have an explanation as well. So you'll be able to review that in your free time. All right. The common themes of the increases for next year's budget proposals is, of course, the inflation. Everything has gone up. So it's only just a matter of our copiers, our vending services, supplies, the inflation of maybe even just simple paper. Upgrading the aging technology and supporting digital instruction of compliance system. This is to replace the smart boards, the smart board bulbs, and then our copiers as well, but then also just to make sure we're still in compliance. The supporting classrooms with instructional consumables and updated the curriculum materials. This will just increase for our teacher supplies and alongside of the textbooks and curriculum software. Safety, appearance, and maintenance of school facilities. This is repair, signage, the equipment for the maintenance, and building upkeep to ensure a safe, welcoming environment for our staff, students, and community. The investments of staff and student development as well. Professional development, our substitute coverage, and special education supports for student access, and staff retention is all in our non-labor request. So again, just a high-level overview. How did we get here? What are we looking at? And we are still continuing to put together our budget. So this is just all of the transparent details that you are provided today.
We think it's very important that you see everything that was requested. And that's why you've gotten multiple pages. Let me just say a word about band uniforms, because I've had some experience at this, a little bit. So in the past, when you have a band booster organization, it's not let's make a deal, but it is kind of let's make a deal. Band uniforms are extremely expensive. And what I have done in the past is work with the booster organization and say, okay, if you raise X amount of dollars over the next 2 to 3 years, the board is ready to match that to buy the uniforms. So it's a kind of a shared thing because band boosters and they do lots of fundraisers. So it puts them kind of on, we're willing to be partners with you. And I've not discussed that, but I think it's a way to look at this. And it's something that's also concerning to me is looking at the number of students we have in band. It's not where I think it probably should be for high schools our size. And how we recruit, how we put those kids through that, it may be indicative, I'm just going to say this and just step away from it real quick, how the block schedule and how that all works. Because kids just want their classes, and sometimes the things that suffer are the fine arts in a block. I think there are ways to look at that. Certainly I'm going to have some discussions with the principals before I leave on how you can do some hybrid block scheduling and hopefully increase those students in those fine arts programs. I wanted to say that about the band uniforms because I've seen it work and be very, very successful in other places I've been. Oh, now it is the Dr. Costner show. We were going to serve popcorn.
You open the door. Here we go. All right. Well, first of all, you all know that Warren County has beautiful facilities. I mean, our buildings are just, I mean, they're amazing. And you bring somebody and you walk in Warren County Middle School, you walk into the high schools. Even some of our buildings, though, as you know, that are old. Some of them were even constructed before Dr. Martin was born. So, he started. So,
Be sure I hear every word.
Yes, sir. So what I wanted to do is, instead of going through all the history, I wanted to give you a snippet in the front sheet that you have, which is this slide that shows you when the years were constructed. It also shows you when we were able to do renovations. And one of the things that you do need to look at and keep in mind as we move into the future, there's the current enrollments listed, but then also you have what's called the educational capacity. And educational capacity is based on 20 students per class. And because you want to make sure, now the fire marshal says you can have a lot more, but that's not a true educational classroom. So keep in mind as we look at this, and you are going to see some things that are going to be repeated over and over from what Kendall them and also showed you. I'm going to show you some of the same things, but I wanted to give you this up front so you could see when they were constructed, some of the renovations that have been done, and then the reason that we're basing some of our improvement plans for this. So if we turn over to the next page where you have, thank you, and this has been one of the hot topics, is our roof. Our roofing system, as you know, is beginning to struggle. But if you step back and look at it, when some of these buildings were constructed, you know, it's time. And so with it, when the things come up that get done in time, there is money that costs to it. So this roof capital summary sheet goes along with the next sheet that you also have, and I believe you've also already received this one time. But again, I wanted to put it in front of you, put it in your packet, that has the entire roof capital summary, where we had a company come in just recently and go in and review our roofing system and look at it. And just to let you all know, the EPDM is kind of like a rubber membrane roof, if anybody wants to know. That's why EPDM is it's ethylene. We'll leave it at that. It's a rubber roof. But I wanted you to see that where our roof systems are very important. They're our number one priority because we need to be able to take care of the interior of our building. And if we don't have a good roof, you know what's going to happen. So that's why you have this listed here to kind of go over to make sure. So when you see that in our capital improvement plans, things that we're asking for are expensive, but the reason we're asking for them this year or the next year, and as you can see, it's broken down from the roofing where they're discussing it, like Hilda J at 2025-26 is when they're recommending that we replace the shingles and the EPDM roofing system. All the way to go up to 2032 at Skyline Middle School, we're talking about replacing their EPDM. So, I mean, it is spread out. It is also very expensive. So, but that's why you have these two documents that are there with you. The next thing that I wanted to talk about as things, go ahead, thank you, is our transportation. As our, you know, it's just like every vehicle that you probably own and everything else. We try to take care of, we try to keep it in great working order, but eventually things break down, things change. So within our transportation department, along with this, you have a fleet status summary that shows you the buses that we have that are within our current system. It's broken down to where that you can see that, you know, the number of miles that are actually on it, miles that are left, that really when they say they should be replaced. These are the buses that are transporting our babies to and from school, transporting our athletes to and from competitions. We already right now limit our buses and where they can transport our students to. If they go outside that perimeter, they have to go and use an outside busing system. So with the buses we have, our transportation does a great job of keeping them rolling, but as you can see, to replace one bus is around $130,000. That's one bus. And we really need to replace about 5, and actually you can see currently due for replacement, it's listed as 15. So here's the scary thing that I would hate for a phone call where I'd call Dr. Martin and say, Dr. Martin, 2 of our buses went down. we have no more buses. What are we gonna do? We're down to the bare minimum right now. And it's, as you know, one of the reasons, we'll go back to what Kendall, then we're talking about increasing our bus hours to 5 hours. One of the reasons is they're running these routes. If we had more buses and more drivers, it would cut down on the routes that they would have to run, get our kids without having to ride the bus quite as long. But they are spending more time on the buses now because we are short on buses. So, I mean, it's all a vicious cycle. So that's why I wanted to make sure you were aware about with our fleet status. And I know I'm going a little fast, and I apologize, so please stop me if you have any questions about it. One of the things that I also wanted to include when we talk about transportation is that, and our Director of Transportation calls it the white fleet. It's our vehicles that we have at schools. We do have vehicles that transport that are just for special needs. We have vehicles that transport just for our McKinney Vento. But it's also broken down, and they're not going to last forever. That we have one or two that are parked out here that I'm not very proud of. That we're trying to figure out a way to at least get a little bit of income from them to get them off our campus. But they eventually break down. We've got a great shop. Our mechanics do an outstanding job, but they're having to work with what they can. So I wanted to provide you all both with, what we've got on hand. This is 100% of what we've got and what we're dealing with. And these are what our kids are going to, riding on. If there's a golf match, they may take a Yukon. Well, how long has that Yukon been around? Would you drive your children in that Yukon? And the answer is we've all got to say is yes, because we want our babies to be safe. So that's one of the purpose for the transportation. Now, some of the other things that you have that we've listed up here, like resurfacing the parking lot, those are things, and we do need a new bus lift because in truth, we have one lift right now that the hydraulics are not working too well. And I don't think you want to put anybody under a hydraulic lift that's not being able to hold the bus up, okay? We don't need that. Yes, ma'am.
So with the lifts, the main expense on a lift is the steel, it's the metal. So you can rehydraulic them and have a considerable cost savings on that. That's what the professional auto shops do. They don't need to replace it.
And I'm sure our
Yeah, you
mechanics
just-
will look into that to make sure, because we're not, one of the things that I don't think so far that I've experienced, now I could be 100% wrong, because you're right. Some people, there are people that say, oh, well, it doesn't work, we need to buy a new one. A lot of these guys try to figure out ways to make it work. And I think one of the lists is, they're around 22 years old. I'm not 100% sure, but I can get you that exact information.
They'll last for forever. It's just the internal, like this is what my family does for a living. And we toured the shop last year.
Yeah.
And it's just something to look into because it's a huge cost savings to just redo the guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll most definitely do that.
And then, did we change the amount of miles that is acceptable for the buses to 150,000? Because
This was information that I received from our Director of Transportation this
Okay.
morning. I do not know if anything's been changed or adjusted. I did ask him to make sure it was updated.
okay,
If there's a question, I need to go back and ask him. He's not here tonight, but I'll be glad to see if I can get that information for you. What particular?
200,000 and 250,000 has been what the average lifespan of the bus is usually about 12 to 15 years. And I'll go back and pull prior documents that I have with regard to that. The 150,000 seems pretty low for needing a total bus replacement.
I'll check and get back with you on that.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the fleet?
Well, we went on the oldest bus on our bus tour, so we experienced it.
The oldest?
That's
Yeah,
what the
we
guy
did.
said. It was the oldest bus in the
Had
fleet
plenty of legroom, didn't it?
for some people.
But I will I'll work on that. All right. So the other thing that I do wanted to share with you when you see it in the budget is that, as you know, we do have contracted services. We have contracted services with our substitute, we have contracted service with our custodial service, and we have contracted services with our food services. And as you can see, ESS, ATS, and Sodexo are the ones that we have our contracted services with. And within the contract, each year, it is written in there, they can request an increase. Now, we can negotiate that, but we do need to be prepared for that because, let's say, for example, if HES does their 3% increase off of it, and they do ask for $67,000 more dollars, we have to be able to find a way to afford that. If we're level funded, that means that something else is not happening. And so that's why we have these apps. That's why I want to make sure you understand these apps. And I'm hoping that, maybe they won't. I'm hoping they're not listening, and that they don't do that. But it is part of the contract. It's a bid process. It's in everybody's contract. So, and you'll see this each year when those things come up. But I did want to make sure you were aware of that. The next three main items, I just have to pause, and I have to thank Kendall for an outstanding, great job that she did with the spreadsheet that you all saw at the beginning. This data that she was able to have the principals and everybody put together, it makes my life a lot easier, more challenging, because it's all here in front of you. But we were able to pull the data. She was able to pull this, and so we kind of broke it down into the first that you see, the main facilities requests. This all builds up to the capital improvement plan, okay? But what we did is as you saw from the template that the principals filled out, what were your main requests? What did you need? So we're digesting this since we've already gotten it to look at to see what we can do. And so this is the first one where the principals said this was their main request. And like, for example, at AS Roads, the cafeteria stairs outside, it says outside stairs are deteriorating. If you've ever been on the outside stairs, they need some loving. Okay, they really do. And that is something that when we see these things, we look at it, we put it in our plan. I've got a great director of maintenance and facilities. He's just an outstanding guy. If y'all don't know him, I mean, he does a wonderful job.
What's his name?
Well, I just call him the golden one. So, but he's able to look at these plans and figure out what we can do, what can be part of his budget, what's supposed to be part of the school's budget, and then what do we need to put in the capital. So, that you can go through. This is for you all to go down and look through, because I think one of the questions came up in the tour was, well, we need to know what they need. Well, here you go. What they've requested for their needs, and some of the things, that we, such as, like signage for special services. That's something we can handle in-house, but that was a request. It was a number one need. This is ranked from 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on their primary requests. It's listed out by the schools and just approximate cost of certain things, but I wanted to make sure you had it when we start talking about our capital plan. This is a kind of a working fluid document. Anytime you deal with capital, it's going to be a fluid document, because there's some things. The best example I can give you is that we are getting an appropriation for some of the roof repairs. It's not in this. The appropriation for this year is not in this request, but it will affect our capital depending on how much money we receive for what can we get done out of the appropriation we receive from the Board of Supervisors for the roof repairs. We're not going to be able to repair all of them, but we need to repair some of the most challenging ones. I mean, if you look over my right shoulder, you're going to see 2 ceiling tiles that are missing. I called Brian up and I said, Brian, why are these ceiling tiles missing? I said, what's going on? He said, we're still trying to find the leak and get it and identify it so we can fix it instead of putting a roofing tile up there. Because I said, the board doesn't need to see this. Well, yes, you do. You need to see that that's where it's leaking coming through, and we're working at trying to get it repaired. So will that appropriation help with that one, or where will it be I just want you to be aware of it. So this sheet you received is their primary request that came from the principals when we had our principals meeting. Is there any specific question? I know this is a lot of information, and I'll be willing to take questions at a later date when we come back, but I wanted you all to have this to start digesting it. That's the first one. Yes,
I have
sir.
a question on the ranking. So the top header of each one says rank number 1, and then rank number 2, rank number 3, and rank number 4. But then there's a column in here that says rank 1 to 3, 3 being the highest. But there's number 4, and then some of them are ranked 1 and 3 that are in the 1. So the very top part has it's rank number 1. I don't know if that means that's the most important thing, because there's a little legend that says 3 is the highest in this column here, so that they don't actually line up. I don't understand it. You see what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do. I see it
Oh.
over here.
Well,
You
that
sort
would
them
be,
by
that
item
would
instead of
rank 1
ranking.
through 3 being the highest. We need to reverse that. Right.
But then it also, we go to 4, but we,
I think, did you sort them by item instead of ranking?
It's ranked by item on the left-hand side.
Mhm.
That's where you're gonna identify their
Ah.
request from the 1, 2, 3, 4.
and is 1 the highest?
1 is the
One is the
highest.
I told you she's great. Thank you,
But then why
Kevin.
why does the second one,
Just that second column, rank 1 to 3.
rank 1 to 3, why does AS Roads, it's the item number 1, but it's ranked 3?
So when
Oh,
we
it being
did
the highest.
our
3 is the
rubric,
highest.
this might have come over from our template. When we did our rubric, we looked at everybody's personnel requests, and even if they're saying it was their number 1, we say, is that truly what we, as the leadership team, would say would be the number 1 request? And so we adjusted what they requested and looked at it holistically as Warren County Public Schools. This might have been kind of a carryover from that, because some of their requests, as far as like Rusty Jeffries, for example, the third line on here for painting all the bathrooms, like we're putting that into maintenance. Is it maintenance or capital? Because it might have been one of their requests, but it actually doesn't fall under what they need to budget it for. It maybe falls under capital. So this is probably just because it's our worksheet, our notes, and trying to update it.
So that column, rank 1 to
Or-
3, 3 being the highest, we should
I
just
would
ignore
just
it.
ignore
Yeah.
that. I would just ignore that,
That's how
because
you
then we
do
were
it.
saying, is it capital or maintenance?
Okay.
You know, I'll point out HR, I was like, I'd like some new desks, my desk hit the knees, right? Just my little request. I'm taking it out, yes, but, you know, that's a department purchase, but maintenance will install it. So, you know, that would be on here, but it's one of those that it wouldn't actually go into capital or maintenance.
Right.
It would come out of my funds. And so, again, just a worksheet, and those were our notes, but just to make the water a little muddy.
What was the total extra appropriation that we have received towards roofs?
129,000.
Okay.
Sure.
I think that sounds
I was
right.
thinking it was an extra 160.
160?
I'm not 160.
So yeah, was there
Oh, I know.
leftover from the tennis courts?
Yeah,
that
there
we
was
could
money
then
left
put
over from the tennis courts, there 106, and that went over to the other,
Yeah, which we would have to go back and then ask for it to be added back, I believe, if I'm correct on that. Is that right, Mr. Valentine?
No, I submitted,
Oh,
It's in capital.
yeah, it's been
Okay.
appropriated because I submitted an appropriation letter to them saying we're only gonna spend 106.
Right.
That left money, and we wanted that to go into the roofing fund.
Okay,
So they would know where every dollar was going to be spent.
okay. So
That
we're
way
at about
it'll
160.
increase it, yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Okay. I mean, obviously, we still have a lot to go, but
All right. Any other questions on the, that we can try to do our best to confuse y'all with the ranking facilities? The other one that you received, again, it is the other request by ranking. These were just other items that they had said that they would need that could possibly fall under anything from, you know, like, for example, Blue Ridge Tech wants to add, to increase their school safety, they want to add Identikid. It could fall under technology, which is 2,000, but it wasn't a primary need that they wanted. But it was still something that they were requesting. So this is kind of broken down into what they felt like they wanted. It would be nice to have, to be able to get fixed. But again, it was something that, you know, they could, it wasn't their top wish. But again, trying to get information to everyone to make sure you have their wish list and know what they're wanting. Their Christmas list, how about that?
How come a lot
that
of it,
your-
there's no amounts on a lot of the, on these?
Well,
this
it's
sheet?
because it's a lot of it, sometimes it costs us money to get quotes. Sometimes, and then that's one of the things, a lot of people won't give us quotes anymore because we've asked, and so we face that challenge. And then a lot of it is they just didn't know. And this came from the principals, and so they didn't know the exact amount. They had a wish list, but they didn't know, you know, like little Johnny wanted a brand new bicycle, whether it was a BMX or a Swin or whatever it may be. They didn't really know the price of it, the cost of it.
Is that fax line for just HR?
We
Or
have,
we don't have a
no,
fax line.
we have a fax line. It's a dial-up.
Uh-huh.
You know the noise. You hear the noise with me? Yeah. And
I
it's
just
hard to read FMLA paperwork, so we get a lot of kickbacks. So this would take you to the computer side where you have a number, and it's in like more of an email form.
Updated.
So once it was a wish list.
But for
Anybody
HR, I
like
can
to-
see that. Yeah. Necessary.
All right, the next item that I wanted to take you to again it's a working document, how we build our capital improvement plan. But on it, the next one, which I have here, it lists our facilities, technology, safety. It's a culmination of everything, because when you talk about just a capital improvement plan, which is the last big document you have, it's all about the building construction, those types of things. Here it's broken down in, for example, the intercom system. Actually, we just had, and I'm looking at Jesse because he knows, and we got a great technology group. I mean, you know, they do an outstanding job. We had an issue with the intercom system at Hilda J today, I believe is when it was. And we have it in here, that possibly getting it repaired, but that's in the future, but it's listed as some of the items that we've talked about and listed. The roofing, as you can see, is the #1 priority that we want to get done. Then you can go through and look at other areas, from even resurfacing parking lots to, again, Chromebooks. If we don't start replacing our Chromebooks, and I know that Mr. Stefanoski's behind me, if he has anything to share, or you have any questions about Chromebooks, if we don't start replacing them on a regular basis, then we're in trouble with textbooks and testing. So it goes back to, you know, all testing now is online, if I'm correct. That they don't believe in paper and pencil anymore. So that's a computer, Dr. Martin. So the online, but so these are things, that's why they're listed. That's why we have these asks. But that's the primary reason for this. It gives you everything that we're working through. And then we try to compile it all to update our capital improvement plan. And that's the last document you have here. And it's, since the last building committee, we've actually updated and added some things, and it'll move back. Some of these things may be fluid to move from one year to the next. For example, the repair, the redo the tennis courts is on here in the next 2 years, because the reason it's there is that's the guarantee we have that the current repair is gonna last for 2 years. If it lasts longer, guess what? We're gonna move it further. So that's why the capital improvement plan, you have that, and you'll see why we have our asks. So do you have any questions about facilities for Doug or Brian here that they might want to answer? Any kind of information you would like to have?
I see the new elementary school cost has been updated again.
Yes, ma'am.
To 40 million.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys gotten that to the supervisors so that they can update for their proper amounts?
Now, no, this information, we just got an update.
Okay.
Mr. Helming actually reached out to a contractor on what was just the latest purchase that they they did the cost of building an elementary school, close
Okay.
to one that we needed.
County administrator will have that on Friday.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know it had been updated from, like, when I first got on the board, I think it had like 20 million or something.
Yeah.
Ridiculously low, and it was updated to 30. And I know we had gotten that number, but then it still wasn't updated in the proffers, so I know the new county administrator is working on updating the proffer numbers, so. Thank you.
Any questions that you have for myself concerning what we shared, or, yes, ma'am?
I see, the wrestling room at Skyline Middle School, the 120,000, that's being updated to be used as something else, is that?
Yes, it's projected, there'll still be a wrestling room on one half and a new engineering program on the other
And that's what this 120 is? Okay.
for the entire park.
Yeah, the 120 is for the roof that covers the rest, over the wrestling area. Yes, ma'am.
So it doesn't include anything that needs to be done for the.
For the room, no
for the
ma'am,
use
that's
of the
not what
room.
that's
Okay,
asking
okay.
for. This is solely for the roof.
So maybe just to recap a little bit, here are the things that we owe you. We owe you a lot, but I've narrowed it down. So we're going to look at the cost of living per area and the average income per area as it relates to salary and our comparables. We're going to also look at the number of IAs on level 2, because that number you need to have as well. We're going to look at and talk about the DECA stipend and how DECA is funded. In the Friday memo this week, you should get from me the textbook piece that Heather talked about. I'll have that piece for you. We're going to look at rehydraulicking the lift at the bus garage, and we're also will be more definitive about number of miles for bus replacement and having that done. And I will talk with the county administrator on Friday when we meet to talk about the proffer. The other thing that I think might be helpful, because if I were in your shoes, I would think, oh my gosh, how do we synthesize all this stuff? So I think at some point, what I'd like to see happen is we have to condense this down so you can talk about it, like a one-pager. You know, like here are the requests. If we do our salary increases, like it's going to be this amount. If we do this, it's going to be this amount. So we can begin to have conversations, but it's more manageable that we can talk about. And I think that's something that we can do. It's going to be a little harder maybe when we get into Dr. Costner's area, but we'll try, because he's made things so confusing tonight, but you know, that's all right. Go ahead. I think that's it, unless you have more questions.
I want to thank you very much for all the work you've done, and the explanation has been very good, so thank you very much.
I can't tell you how working with this staff and putting a budget together has been like, it hasn't been like they say, it hadn't been like butter, but it's been, we've had some pretty interesting discussions where we've really taken off the blinders and we've just looked at things. So kudos to them, because they've really done an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank you. This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of employees of the school board, specifically the superintendent contract.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Mr. Valentine, could you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Dr. Monk?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And I'm just gonna ask that we go into that back room, that way we. Okay. Not clear.
Then my thing disappeared. According to the votes recorded by the clerk, the school board of Warren County does hereby certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, that one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Mr. Valentine, could you do roll call?
Yes. Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Dr. Funk?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And then just really quick, reminder, next week, we will be having our meeting here in this room at 6:30. So just a reminder to everybody, anything else this evening that I'm missing?